Here's Gaither off the right side. Has room. Gaither might go right up the gut. At the 20, Gaither 15, inside the 10, he will score. Touchdown.
Smoaky.com presents the Texas High School Football Show on 365 Sports. Brought to you by Peter Chevrolet.
Three receivers, Birch, Thomas, and Williams far side. Near side to Great. Fulbright to the right of Mordecai. Here comes the blitz. Mordecai throws a deep out. Pass. Caught. Kobe Birch. Touchdown.
Here's David Smoke.
Well, we're back for another week. Smoaky.com presents, and it's the Texas High School Football Show. We'll hear from Lake Belton football coach Brian Cope. Started a program up from scratch. I mean, like from the ground up. We'll also hear about an amazing story with what West Rusk High School is doing. In 1937, people were killed because of a gas explosion in New London, Texas. And they started a tradition of giving away the number 37 jersey, presenting it to somebody before their home games. And this week, they present it to a young man from the opposite school. They're a competing school against Mineola, and what a story that is between Nick Harrison, the head coach at West Rusk, and Mineola's Luke Blackwell, and we'll tell you a little bit more about that later in the show today. We'll also have the games of the week, the elite games, thanks to Jerry Forrest and Pigskin Prep, and of course, we wouldn't be here without my great friend Randy Peters and Peters Chevrolet in Longview, Texas, and all of what they do with that massive dealership. And they I mean, you talk about someone that loves the high school football, it is Randy Peters. Last week, I kind of went over some of the former state championships. We went through I think we went through the 80s, and let's get into the 1990s, early 90s. Here are some games. I'm going to look at a game and just make a comment about each one as far as state championship teams from in high school football in Texas. 1991, Killeen beat Sugarland Dulles. That was Luby's. That was when people inside Luby's were gunned down. And that's the same year the Kangaroos found a way to overcome the tragedy in Killeen, and they started this run. In fact, I saw them in the quarterfinals, that 2091 Killeen team. They beat what was then Tyler Lee High School at Kyle Field at A&M Consolidated. In 92, I might have seen one of the biggest, strongest high school football teams I've ever seen, 92 Temple. I saw them in a non-district game when they beat the heck out of, again, the same team in Tyler Lee. I mean, this team was loaded. It didn't mean they didn't have a couple of warts and a couple of bumps and bruises, but Temple eventually won the state title, beating that Yates 38-20. And I mean, that offensive line was collegiate looking. 1994, one of my favorite memories. I've got tons of them in high school football. That was the year when Plano East and John Tyler had the memorable game at Texas Stadium, and John Tyler was rolling 41-17. Then Plano East onside kick, onside kick, onside kick. And then, of course, the spectacular kickoff return by Rod Dunn. I mentioned that a couple weeks ago, where he ran down the sidelines and ran right through the tunnel, and John Tyler came back after leading big to win that game against Pesh, Plano East. Plano East fans hate it when I bring that up. And then eventually, they went on to win the state championship by beating Austin Westlake down in Houston at the Astrodome. I did the last 3 games of that team in the playoff games on the radio. Also, 1997. This was interesting because Longview went to the state championship. You know, they had that long 1937. They finally popped that drought 3 years ago with Haynes King, the quarterback, and John King, good friend of ours of the show as a head coach. But Katy and Longview met, and Katy just crushed Longview. And Robert Biro was the head coach of Longview, had a very successful career, but that was kind of the beginning of the end. And the reason I bring that game up is not for a bad memory for Robert Biro. Eventually his contract wasn't renewed, but Longview brought in a guy named Pat Collins. He had coached at La Tech. He was a collegiate coach, but he coached a very successful career in Louisiana. That changed East Texas. Katy beating Longview in 97 for the state title eventually changed East Texas high school football. You had guys like Pat Collins, and who, of course, John King was an assistant on his staff, who's now been at Longview forever and won that state title I mentioned just 3 years ago. It brought in Mike Valerie, who coached at Kilgore, won a state championship there, and a lot of staff he brought with him from Louisiana. It brought in Deaky Meeks, And Dickie Meeks, of course, had already been from Louisiana, had already been in Texas, but it just kind of validated the kind of coaches you have in Louisiana. And they all came to East Texas and brought a different mentality to an already really tradition-rich area. I thought that was something of note as well. And then Quan Cosby and company at Mart dominated, winning the state championship in 1990. They hammered Boyd 40-7. And the thoughts were, okay, they're going to go back-to-back. And they didn't. But they had that great win in 1990 with Quan Cosby and company there. Couple of games from last week I want to point on, and then we break and come back with Lake Belton coach Brian Cope. Best wins. Lake Travis smoked Converse Judson, who had just beaten DeSoto 52-20. Geyer beat Ryan in the Battle of Denton 14-7. That's a great game. How about Argyle? I mean, Pleasant Grove has had a great run with head coach Josh Gibson, won a couple state titles. Man, Argyle beat them. Argyle's playing at a level that is insane, 62-21. Van beat Malakoff. Couple of tough losses for Malakoff to start the year to Grandview, and then Van, who's a 4A school, Grandview 3A. And then couple of old school names that went at each other. Tatum and Dangerfield. Tatum winning 35-28. South Lake Carroll. They were losing throughout the game against Rockwall Heath. Mike Spradlin, the head coach. Heath made that great run last year in the playoffs. South Lake Carroll comes back to take the lead, 36-35. They block a field goal to ensure that victory in that game. In Westlake, and Todd Dodge, one of our guests the first show a couple weeks ago, smoked Trinity 34-14. So those are just some of the games to bring up from last week. Again, we'll look at the best games this coming week when we have our end of the show. Coming up next, Lake Belton football coach, brand new school, trying to find their way, and they're doing a pretty good job of it. Brian Cope of Lake Belton, next on the Smoaky.com presents the Texas High School Football Show.
All roads lead to your largest selection of pre-owned in East Texas. 3306 West Grande in Tyler. It's time for a car buying experience you will enjoy at Peters Auto Sports. Cars from ultimate luxury to affordable economy. Trucks from work to play to all-out adventure. Come by 3306 West Grande in Tyler or visit us online at Peters Auto Sports and take advantage of our nationwide delivery. It's all here. Peters Auto Sports in Tyler.
For a limited time, refinance your vehicle and have 90 days with zero payments. Only at Genco FCU. Refinancing lowers your rate and you pay less for your car. You can't pass on rates as low as 1.75% for 48 months. Apply online today.
Annual percentage rate subject to change without notice. Subject to credit approval, membership eligibility, and loan policies. Go to GencoFCU.org. NCUA Equal Housing Lender.
My money, my future, my credit union. Genco.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
You know, we've talked to a lot of different programs where they have won multiple state championships, been around forever. And then there's Lake Belton, what Brian Cope is trying to do there, basically build from the bottom up, like you would Lake Concrete or whatever you have to do to build a new house. And Brian Cope, head coach at Lake Belton, off to a 2-0 start. Poteet this week. He joins us right now on the Texas High School Football Coaches Show. And Brian, yeah, you know, this is incredible. I love the fact you took this head on. Have you had a day when you decided to do this that you said, man, this might have been a mistake?
Far from it. It has been a great few years so far building this, and it has been really exciting. I've had a lot of moments where it just puts a smile on your face, where hard work pays off, and we tell the kids that all the time. But I believe that's also in the coaching profession as well.
You know, you've been excited about this. I remember when this first launched, and we probably had on the old radio station we were at, and what this means. What's been the biggest challenge? You're not a part of really a district. You don't have any seniors, and that's schools have done this before. It's not like the first time. But what has been the biggest challenge?
This week's a perfect example. We have 5 teams, 250 kids in our program with no senior class, and we're playing 5 different opponents in 3 different locations. So I am a head football coach, but I'm also a logistics coordinator. And sometimes those weeks kind of get to you a little bit, but man, it's an exciting time. It's a lot of fun. All 5 of our teams are 2-0 right now. And so that makes it a lot of fun because winning breeds winning.
So you cannot make the playoffs. How is that? Like, everyone, sports is about competing and eventually being, I guess, rewarded for what you do if you keep winning. But sports is more than wins and losses. I get that too. Is that kind of difficult knowing that there won't be, no matter what you do, a postseason?
We've kind of joked with the kids. We're on a 10-game playoff trip.
Okay.
And we treat each game like a playoffs. And man, our coaching staff has done a phenomenal job of Coach Hooten, our defensive coordinator, and Matt Uzel, our offensive coordinator, have done a phenomenal job of getting the kids prepared. And we're adding different schemes and different wrinkles to our offense every week. And I think that's important. We're not just trying to get better. We're trying to have some creativity and make sure our kids understand what it takes to be great.
You think people are going, wait a minute, this Lake Belton, this is not what we thought it was going to be, a brand new school. We got problems with them.
I'm fortunate. We're going to play 6 different varsity teams along with 4 games against new schools just like us.
Yep.
And I've had some people say they won't play me already. But man, our goal is very similar to those top college programs, man. We're going to try to get 1 degree better each day. And if we worry about ourselves and not worry about anybody else and we do our very best, good things are going to happen.
Have you been a part of a startup anywhere else before, either as a student or as a coach or anyone else?
Well, funny you should bring that up. But I was the 3rd grade graduating class at Cy Falls High School.
That's what I thought, yeah.
Where my dad was the offensive coordinator and opened the school. When I was coaching at Spring High School, we split with Decaney High School. When I went to Cy Woods, and they were in year 4 or year 5, but they were fairly new. So I asked a lot of questions. And then when I was the OC at A&M Consolidated, I was on the other side, but we split with College Station High. Mm-hmm. And all had been very similar to the 2-year process and then make the playoffs. So I had a lot of resources to use. And that's been kind of fun to see. And man, it's been a blast every day opening a school.
Is that really, because of all that experience you mentioned, heck, it's almost at every level you mentioned, coaching or playing. Did that make this a lot easier to maybe yourself go, man, I've seen this work before, why not?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's easier, but I would say that I felt confident in it. In understanding that year 1, we needed to play JV ball and play good programs, which we did. And then also in year 2, try to find some varsity competition and been fortunate, I'm not saying that COVID has been fortunate, but some teams dropped some other teams that they probably wouldn't have in a 2-year contract cycle. And so I've been the beneficiary of being able to play some varsity games and all across the state, from Mahia and Cameron Yo and Llano and Central Texas to traveling to Fort Worth last week to play Arlington Heights and historic Farrington Field to traveling down at Poteet. The Strawberry Festival's not going on right now, but that doesn't mean we can't go out there and have a good competition and some fun.
This was an interesting, I do that online form. I know you guys as coaches hate this, but I do this online form, and I always look for something unique with every program. And I even ask for human interest stories, and of course yours is the fact you're having a startup program. But this is funny. You'll never have it. Well, you might have this one more time. 9-1 record coming off last year's team, as you mentioned, your year of when you started. 11 starters back on offense and 11 starters back on defense. I guess you should have that, right?
Well, I will, and I'm going to be honest with you. Next year, I'm going to count every person who started a game.
You have like 22 starters.
COVID, so we're looking at probably 18 and 18 coming back.
You know what's going to happen? They're going to put that in Dave Campbell's Texas Football Magazine, and people are going to go, wait a minute. What the heck's going on? How are the young men, knowing that they're kind of like getting in a boat and like going into the ocean and they don't know where it may land. Although you kind of have an idea with realignment coming up at the end of the year or eventually February of next year. How have they handled all this?
Man, there's great kids across the state of Texas, but I feel blessed to have some of the most outstanding individuals to be able to coach. We're very relationship driven here. And man, our kids understand. I tell the seniors all the time, hey, I apologize to them that we can't make the playoffs. But that's a decision that the district made. That's something that we don't control. And so we're going to control the controllables here and make sure that we have an opportunity. My junior class, our first class, man, what an outstanding. It started when I got the job. We moved them on to their own athletic period, and we got to start developing culture right there and what we wanted to be and what did our brand identity, which is where Rise Up comes in. We're going to teach our kids how to respond, have integrity, be service leaders, play with 212 effort, be unity, and then players make plays. And you'll see it if you come to a game that the kid who plays with the best effort the week before is going to run out with that 212 flag, and it's a big flag. But man, it takes 1 degree more to be great.
Brian, when they decided to have another school in Belton, because Belton's growing, and obviously Belton, you've been a part of that at Belton Tigers football, and there was this worry about the name of the mascot, and that happens. People can get really kind of emotional about that, and I think initially everyone wanted maybe both schools to have that same Tigers. Now you're the Broncos, and you're having success. Has that helped? Is that even an issue anymore?
It's not an issue. We're the Big Red community, but I think they've done a great job of giving the elementaries identities.
Yep.
Both of our middle schools are Broncos. They're going to play in the Bronco Bowl next Monday and Tuesday, and our whole staff will be there to support those kids because, man, we're going to be. I don't want to be just a 4-year or a 3-year program. I want to be a 7-year program, which starts in our 6th grade pre-athletics class. And man, my coaches and myself, we get down to the middle schools quite often, and that's where it starts to develop. That's where they know how to break out and run our schemes. And I think it's important. We're very, very fortunate to have 200% true feeders. My head strength coach, Cade Cole, does a phenomenal job everywhere, but especially making sure those kids have a great foundation in the weight room, because that's where you win championships. And man, it's a blast right now here in Bronco country.
What are the expectations when you turn in that enrollment, that snapshot day? Are you going to be a 5A school?
Yes, sir. Right now, we would be 5A Division I is what it looks like.
Okay, wait a minute. 5A Division I, and that's how you start. And so I'm trying to figure out your district. You mentioned A&M. You could end up with those schools, right? It depends on what Waco High and University do. It depends on what happens with Belton High. So you might have your little kind of cozy little spot right here.
Yeah, you know what? We're going to find out in February where it goes. Last realignment, I was in Waco at the Region Center, and everybody was opening up to the football page. But, I'm an outlaw schedule for 2 years. So I was probably one of the only football coaches opening up the volleyball page to find out what district we were in. And man, we've had some great success last year in 4A. We'll continue this year in 4A as well. And then 5A, here we come. And after that, they're building houses left and right. If the radio gig doesn't work out for you, David, I recommend you being a home builder in Belton ISD.
Well, the way houses are selling for millions or hundreds of thousands of dollars these days too, aren't they? So that's great.
There's a lot of growth here in Belton ISD. Specifically in the West Temple area, North Belton area, and man, it's a lot of fun.
All right, so you're having a great time. Brian Cope, head coach at Lake Belton High School, brand new school. Again, next year they get to go play for real. And not that you're not doing that now. There's wins and losses. There's a scoreboard. Really, how do you describe what you've seen, experienced, and what you're dealing with right now?
It hit me a little bit when we went to kick the field the first game before we played Mahia. And you talk about 11 starters back on both sides of the ball. Normally you're teaching those kind of things new. Man, our kids knew exactly what to do, which is a testament not just to me. And I work hard, but I got 13 different guys with me. But man, I got former head coaches, former coordinators, former college coaches. Man, it's a testament to our staff, and we don't treat. Now, I looked up yesterday and during Inside Run with our JV group. It was being coached by Matt Uzel, our OC, myself, and our defensive coordinator, Coach Hooten, along with another assistant O-line coach. So we're going to try to win on every level. And I think when you do that and you put the time and energy and effort it takes with all your kids, I think it's really important. Our coaches leave the JV and varsity practice and walk right over to freshman practice where there's 120 fighting young Broncos getting ready to go.
I want to put this out there. We were going to try to do this last week, and you told me you couldn't on Tuesday because you had to be, and you wanted to be at the volleyball game, which I thought that says quite a bit as well. I'm going to throw out a scenario, and it may not make sense for you. If I want to add this question to our conversation, Brian Cope at Lake Belton High School. When I was in Japan, my dad's military, so we went, my 8th grade year, I was at a middle school, and then my freshman year, I was at what was then Chofu High School, and then Japan was going through the consolidation of military bases, and eventually we ended up consolidating where I was and moved to Yokota Air Force Base, which became the massive Air Force Base, and I enrolled at a school that I hated. I mean, that was our rival, and we had beaten them. Have you had, and hated's probably a strong word, but it took me a while to kind of get used to that because I'm wearing the colors of a team we didn't like. How has that been, the transition of being at one school and now a student is in a different school?
I think that's a testament to Jill Ross, our principal, and our community. Mm-hmm. We're all Broncos over here, and our kids from day one that I got announced have never looked back.
That's great.
They've bought into our program, and it really is. I think last year we had to be coach driven. This year we're more player driven, and I fully expect the following year to be a lot player driven. But our kids haven't looked back, man. They want to create their own. They want to create a legacy here at Lake Belton to where those kids are remembered. And we talk to them all the time about it, from our junior class to our sophomores that are on the varsity. That those kids, they get a chance to define what success means here at Lake Belton High School.
Brian, great stuff. Congratulations on what you've done, what you've accomplished. I know there's still a lot of work to be done. Appreciate your time today, and good luck against Poteet moving forward.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having us. Man, I really appreciate your show. You do a phenomenal job of getting the word out for Texas high school football, and I think a lot of people talk about Friday Night Lights. What they don't realize is all the hard work that you and numerous others do to make this state so exciting for Friday nights.
It's fun. Brian Cope, head coach at Lake Belton High School, on Smoaky.com's The Texas High School Football Show.
All roads lead to your largest selection of pre-owned in East Texas. 3306 West Grande in Tyler. It's time for a car buying experience you will enjoy at Peters Auto Sports. Cars from ultimate luxury to affordable economy. Trucks from work to play to all-out adventure. Come by 3306 West Grande in Tyler or visit us online at Peters Auto Sports and take advantage of our nationwide delivery. It's all here. Peters Auto Sports in Tyler.
For a limited time, refinance your vehicle and have 90 days with zero payments. Only at Genco FCU. Refinancing lowers your rate and you pay less for your car. You can't pass on rates as low as 1.75% for 48 months. Apply online today.
Annual percentage rate subject to change without notice. Subject to credit approval, membership eligibility, and loan policies. Go to GencoFCU.org. NCUA Equal Housing Lender.
My money, my future, my credit union. Genco.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
I remember when I was younger in television, one of my great friends, Jerry Gumbert, who was brilliant at what he did in TV, and he was good about documentaries. And he did a documentary on 1937 and New London and the 295 students who were killed in the gas leak and explosion that rocked the entire state of Texas, but rocked the country as well, and changed the way, quite frankly, it changed the way gas is now distributed and what you can or cannot smell. It's a story that was sad. And, I remember the documentary. We went to various, even cemeteries, to take some of the pictures of the headstones in 1937, the date and all that. And it really touched me. It really, really did. So I always ask coaches around the state, give me something that is different than football. And Nick Harrison, the head coach at West Rusk High School in New London, sent me a note about how they started a tradition with the number 37 jersey to honor those who perished back in 1937. We're also going to hear from Mineola head coach Luke Blackwell in just a moment and how he and his family are tied into the tradition. Nick Harrison joins me, West Rusk football coach on, again, the Texas High School Football Podcast Show. So when did this idea come about?
It actually came about this year. Miles Toller, he follows all games and does the radio for them. Came up with the idea. He asked me in an interview of what we did. We have the gold hashes on the 37 for the yard lines on the field to kind of remember that. And he mentioned having a 37 jersey, kind of like what A&M does with the number 12. And we thought it was a great idea. We started incorporating it this year. We kind of pushed it this summer, put it out there on social media. The community fell in love with it. Our kids really bought into that concept. So we're just trying to tie the history in to this generation of kids that we have now. And it's it's really kind of take off a little bit more and more each week. So,
you know, I don't want to bring up tragic moments, but obviously that was one, no question about it. Oklahoma City had their building that was destroyed. And obviously we're coming up on the 20th anniversary of the awful 9/11. And there's certain cities that have memories. How much do you think the younger generation understands? Is that something that in New London at West Rusk High School that they're taught and they understand the lineage or the history there?
All of them through 7th grade. When they get to 7th grade, they take them over to the museum and they walk through and kind of learn about what happened. But you know the attention span of 7th graders. So how much they take in and get away from it, we're not sure. But anytime we can bring it back to them, and especially tied into the sports side, because that's really what gets them. I think it's what anchors it to them, and they'll remember going on. Once they leave here, they can tell stories about the 37 jersey and how each member for week to week, whether it's a JV kid or someone else that really special that we see and our coaching staff and community sees deserves that 37 jersey. I think it just helps really tie it in all together.
No question about it. And you would think that it would probably be something that was right there in your community, which it is. Mineola football coach Luke Blackwell joins us also with Nick Harrison at West Rusk on the High School Football Statewide Podcast Show. Luke, when Nick called you and told you about what they were doing, did you have any idea why he was calling you?
Well, no, I didn't. You know, actually, Nick had sent me a text first and just kind of gave me an idea of what they were thinking about doing. And you know, immediately I picked up the phone and called him and told him, you know, how special I thought that was and how much that meant to me and our family and just what a great sentiment that we thought that was.
Nick, when did you learn about Jace, Luke's son, Jace Blackwell?
Heard the story of sometime during the summer or right at the beginning of football season, 2-a-days. I believe it was on social media. When I heard about it, immediately got in contact with Coach Blackwell, just let him know that the community of West Rusk and our family was praying for him. It was something that really struck us to heart, and we were really honored and proud to be able to give him this 37 jersey this week. Was there any trepidation about calling Luke about this at all? Well, I just wanted to make sure it was okay with him. At any time something like this happened, I couldn't imagine what their family's going through. Mm-hmm. I just wanted to make sure he was okay with it. And he was on board. Actually, he brought up, I believe it was his grandpa, and I can let him tell the story, Coach, about had a little bit of a tie in that 1937 day. Wow. Luke, we'll get to Jace, your son, and share what you told me yesterday as well. But so you're the grandfather's involved here, huh?
Yeah. So, you know, I told Nick, I said, I've got, you know, some family going back quite a ways from that New London area, you know, from New London to Troop, all kind of throughout that area. But anyway, my dad's dad was a first responder that day of the school explosion. You know, I know he told the story to my dad. I never heard it from him directly, but the way my dad tells it, they were working on an oil and gas rig just a couple miles down the road, early that day, shortly after kids had been dropped off at school. But anyway, they could, hear and feel the explosion. They knew something bad had happened and responded immediately and headed back into town to the school and started trying to give attention to the scene. I don't want to get too detailed, but obviously just a horrific scene and the thing that those guys were having to do as first responders that day, pretty incredible.
I remember going through some of the archives and pictures when Jerry was doing the documentary, and it's awful. There's no question about it. So Luke, Nick wants to use the number 37 jersey honor for your son, Jace. And I called you yesterday or Monday and asked you about, hey, can we interview you Tuesday? And you said, no, Tuesday is the day we take Jace, to Dallas for treatment. Can you kind of take us back to when your son started feeling pain or wasn't feeling correct?
Yeah, so, kind of going back in the spring at the end of the school year, he'd complained time to time about some joint pain, and there'd be a day or two where he'd have trouble walking. Maybe his knees were hurting. And, Ashley and I just kind of figured it was growing pain or something like that. Usually only lasts for a couple of days, and then it seemed to kind of go away on its own. And so that had kind of gone on for a while. And then there toward the end of school, it got a lot worse, and it got to be where it was several joints at one time, like a knee and an elbow. And you could see some visible swelling, and he was in quite a bit of pain. And we ended up going up to Scottish Rite in Dallas, and at that time they diagnosed him with childhood arthritis. That's what the juvenile arthritis is what they told us. So we started some medicine at that time, some anti-inflammatory stuff to try to help with that, and really for 2.5 weeks after that, he didn't have a symptom at all. And so, we thought that we'd probably hit the nail on the head there, and things seemed to be doing right and getting better. And so we were encouraged by that. And, shortly after that, probably that next week, he started complaining again of knee pain. And then 3 or 4 days later, it got to the point where he couldn't walk at all. Both knees were swelling and very, very painful. And, we went back to the arthritis doctor. They said, well, this is odd. We need to get an MRI and let's just look at this. And, they said there could be some type of infection in there. So that kind of made sense to me at the time. And then we kind of went from the MRI and they said, okay, y'all need to go to the ER, right now. And we got there and they kind of called us and told us, we've got leukemia is what it is. It's some type of leukemia. So we had to wait for a couple of days because it was the weekend. So we had to wait for a couple of days before we could do the bone marrow test to determine the type and the treatment plan going forward. But no, Nick's right. Nick says, well, it's sometime between the summer and the start of football. And it was about 2 weeks before we started football. So it was everything was kind of running together right there at that time.
Yeah. And I always have said this, young people, children should not be in pain. I know there's broken bones, bumps and bruises, but children should not feel pain, and obviously we should never see anyone have that kind of suffer that as parents or as children as well. Nick, when you heard the story, you said you'd kind of heard about it on social media. As someone yourself who's been around children, as a father, your thoughts about what the Blackwell family is dealing with?
I immediately thought about my kids and what would happen, trying to just think and just started praying for the Blackwell family. Couldn't imagine what they're going through. When I relayed it to my coaching staff, we knew we played them, and we were just trying to think, what's a way maybe we can bring a smile to that kid's face. Mm-hmm. This 37 jersey, I really think if we just get him to have a few moments of just kind of forgetting about what's happening, Coach Blackwell, just to get to enjoy that moment again, I think it would be great. But immediately thought about my kids, and I thought about Coach Blackwell, what he was going through. I couldn't imagine. And then just immediately prayed for him and his family, just to give them peace. And it just really kind of sets you back, not think about football, and makes you thankful for what you got in your life. So it was definitely a surreal moment at that time.
It's Nick Harrison, head coach at West Rush. They're going to present the number 37 jersey to Jace Blackwell coming up this weekend in honor of the memory of the 1937 New London, explosion that killed 295 students. Luke, you told me that you go up to Dallas every Tuesday for treatment, and you're a football coach. Obviously, there's priorities in life, but you have to be there. You mentioned your wife, Ashley. What's that like on Tuesdays for you?
Well, I tell you, initially, David, it's, I told somebody early on, I said, it's tough for me, as I'm sure it would be for Nick or any other football coach at this time of year. I mean, that's our lives revolve around the game of football and the preparation and everything that entails, the day-to-day, the weekends, the long nights, and all of that stuff. And I think as coaches, sometimes we are so programmed just to be one-track mind on things. It's hard to multitask. But I've been in a position now where I'm going to have to figure out a way to do that. And that's, it's a difficult thing because it's so different. And I think a big part of that is, man, you got to have good people around you, and you got to have a good staff and people that you can depend on and trust. And, I've been very fortunate here. I have an unbelievable staff of coaches here, and these guys have all really stepped up, and they're doing more than they've ever been asked to do. But it's not me asking them to do it. It's them. Hey, coach, we're going to take care of this, that, and the other. And, you go handle what you're going to handle. So, they know that I'm going to be gone on Tuesdays. Kids knows I'm going to be gone on Tuesdays. That they know I'm going to be watching practice, at night when we get back too. And we're going to address those things the next day. But that's just kind of how we're having to do things right now. And I feel really fortunate that God's blessed me with the people around me that make this possible to happen.
How is Jace doing?
Yeah, so he, we're about 2 months into treatment now. So the first month was very intensive. So the first month they're really trying to be aggressive and kill all those bad leukemia cells in his body and stuff. And they were successful in that. So, about 3 or 4 weeks ago, we got the phone call that his body was in remission, which means that he had less than 0.01% leukemia cells in his body. So that was a big blessing right there. And then we've moved into phase 2 here in this last month, which is it's some different type of chemo medicines he's doing. He's had the last 4 weeks, he's had a spinal injection every week, and they put him to sleep and give him a spinal injection with some chemo treatment in there too. So it's been a lot of new kind of scary stuff for him, but every week it's a little bit easier. It's a little bit better. And it's really impressive to me just how well he handles that kind of stuff. And I'm thinking how difficult that you would think that would be for kids that age. But, I don't want to say it's a routine now, but I think we're kind of getting into some consistency where he knows, kind of that to expect that we're going to go up there every week and we're going to be doing some stuff. And he's handled that part really well.
Luke, he's 6 years old. Obviously, he knows something's not right. How much can you talk with him about what's going on? And can you tell us something about Jace, about him that people that don't get to see him or don't know him, that is the little boy himself?
Yeah. So, David, you've really kind of hit on the challenge of the whole thing for us as parents. Sometimes it's, you're kind of balancing the information that versus, what do I need to share with him? What does he need to know? And things like that. And so that's really been a tough part for us. And really our approach has been, let's share with him what's going on right now. For example, we were in the hospital for a week at the very beginning of all of this. And our approach was, we came in here with some really bad knee pain, and, we're fixing to start the process. We're going to fix that to where that does not happen again. And it was very painful. So I think he understood that it was a serious situation. And so, we talked about it. We used the word leukemia a little bit, but, we didn't harp on certain things, and I really didn't get into the okay, we're going to be doing this treatment stuff for 2.5 years. There's just certain things I'm like, I don't know the point of causing extra anxiety. So really it's been okay. This week we're going back to the doctor. Next week we're going back to the doctor, or this month. And I don't know that we've really gotten beyond a month, nor has he asked a whole lot about that either. So really our approach has been more day to day. Let's focus on the things that are going on right now and kind of relate it to him in terms of things that we think he can understand without causing extra anxiety.
Does he know what's going to happen on Friday?
No, he doesn't. And, it's a lot of things like that. I kind of let things be surprised to him a little bit too. So I hadn't mentioned to him at all.
Nick, how emotional will that be for obviously the community because of what it reflects back on 1937? I say 295 students and teachers is actually the figure as well. And what will it mean to you and your program and to your players and Mineola, the community of Mineola as well?
I think it's kind of just like I said, it ties in what sports should really be about. It's not always just about going out and winning and losing and all that. It's about bringing communities together, bringing kids together, letting my kid, our coaching staff and our kids, our community see it's more than just about a Friday night football game. And they've done a great job. The energy's been different this week. Not so much I want to go out there and get after somebody, but they're excited for that moment to see what kind of the feelings they'll get, different emotions they'll have, and it'll be me. I'm sure it'll be Coach Blackwell, and it'll be the entire stadium come Friday night.
Nick Harrison, head coach at West Rusk, and Luke Blackwell, the head coach at Mineola. You guys want to beat each other. It wins and losses and all that, but you're right. It's not like you're not practicing hard to play Friday night and win the game. Two really good programs. And especially what Mineola has done in the last few years when there was kind of a time when they struggled. West Rusk has always been obviously a pretty good football team. You guys, you have the 37-yard marker, right? The 37-yard line or gold hash, is that right, Nick? Is that correct too? The hash,
yes, sir. The 37 hashes on the football field.
How much... This is about fraternity too, right? Isn't this about a coaching fraternity, also helping Jace, give him that moment of communities come together and remembering through sports history? Isn't this all about the Texas High School Coaches Association? No matter who you're playing or who your rivals are or who you want to beat, isn't this about a fraternity?
It is. And we've played Coach Blackwell, I believe, the last 4 or 5 years and had some great battles against each other. But it really is. It goes into seeing each other at coaches' school, seeing each other just throughout, sending texts to each other on certain nights, making fun of each other a little bit, picking at each other what we're going to do. We've done that all week this week. It's a lot of fun. It really is kind of like a brotherhood throughout the state of Texas and Friday Night Lights. Now, and he knows and I know that they're going to get after us Friday night. They got a great team. Our kids know when they get on the field, they got a job to do as well. It's just going to have a little bit different emotions before kickoff.
Luke, what do you think the moment will mean to Jace?
Well, I think it'll be special to him for sure. And, and I'll kind of teach him up a little bit on some of the history, and that'll give me an opportunity to explain some of that to him and some of our connection there to, to the history there in New London and some of those things. And I think it'll be awful special to him. And to touch on a little bit there, David, we're talking about the kind of the coaching world. I think there's probably some stuff there that the general public probably doesn't understand how good friends a lot of us really are. And because our lives in terms of what we do are very, very similar. And some of the things that are good and some of the things that are difficult are very similar for all of us. So we have a lot in common, but it's really special to see when things like this go on, the outpouring of support from surrounding communities, and in a lot of ways, where people would consider, man, these are your rivals, and West Rusk is one of those. Like Nick said, here in the last couple of years, man, we have had some battles, and the general fan probably sees it as, man, this is a bloody rivalry here, and the truth is we're pretty good friends, even though it is a rivalry, but we're pretty good friends too. And some of those things supersede the game of football and present us with opportunities to teach our kids and our programs about things that are important in life and how things in the game of football can relate and prepare us to be successful in the game of life also.
If you don't mind, is there something we can do to help? A fundraiser? Is there something we can do to help you offset the costs?
Well, the thing that I've asked for when people say, what can we do to help? I encourage and ask people to send their prayers and support us in that way. I mean, to me, there's no form of support that's better than that. And there's been a tremendous movement that I tell people, when we were in the hospital for that week, that was the thing that I could feel the most was the power of prayer that we were receiving from so many people. And I would just, encourage people to continue to do that. And that's really a special thing. And I think that's the thing that's easy for everybody to do and the most impactful, the most meaningful too.
I know you guys need to get on the practice field. You got a game on Friday, and what a moment's going to be for Jace Blackwell. That's Mineola football coach Luke Blackwell. Luke, thank you so much. Again, Nick Harrison, head coach at West Rush. Thank you, Coach, for what you're doing to give Jace this moment. We appreciate both of you. If there's anything else we can do, we can try to please help. Let me know. You guys know how to. I know you get tired of my emails because I send them all the time. You guys know how to get a hold of me. Thank you both for the time. God bless both of you.
Thanks, Dave. Appreciate it.
Luke Blackwell. Yeah, you too. Luke Blackwell, head coach at Mineola, and West Rusk head coach Nick Harrison. This is Peter Chevrolet, Smoaky.com, the Texas High School Football Podcast.
All roads lead to your largest selection of pre-owned in East Texas. 3306 West Grande in Tyler. It's time for a car buying experience you will enjoy at Peter's Auto Sports. Cars from ultimate luxury to affordable economy, trucks from work to play to all-out adventure. Come by 3306 West Grande in Tyler or visit us online at Peter's Auto Sports and take advantage of our nationwide delivery. It's all here. Peter's Auto Sports in Tyler.
For a limited time, refinance your vehicle and have 90 days with zero payments. Only at Genco FCU. Refinancing lowers your rate and you pay less for your car. You can't pass on rates as low as 1.75% for 48 months. Apply online today.
Annual percentage rate subject to change without notice. Subject to credit approval, membership eligibility, and loan policies. Go to GencoFCU.org. NCUA Equal Housing Lender.
My money, my future, my credit union. Genco.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
All right, we're back to wrap it up. And what we do in the last segment every single week is we look at the games. Jerry Forrest runs pigskinprep.com. It has got all the data you'd ever want from six-man football, Class 1A, all the way up to 6A. He has basically picks each game with his system that he has. Includes TAPS, private schools, and others as well. I don't know how he does it. I run a website, Smoaky.com, which is part of what we do with the show. And it's hard for me, and I do about 300 schools. He does like 12 to 1,500 of them. I love what Jerry Forrest does. He does a great job. And so here are, based on where these teams are ranked right now, after 2 weeks of the season, the number on the right, let's look at that one first. That ranked totals, that's the one that counts here for right now. That means you have, for example, our first game, Argyle, ranked number 1 in the state, Celina number 4. Add those two together, and you get a combined total of 5. Lower the number, the more elite game you have. Westlake and Summit. Now, Westlake gets most of the credit here. They're 1, unbeaten. They're a 6A school. Summit's very, very good. This is going to be tough for Summit, but they're off to a nice start. This will be, I would think Westlake's a heavy favorite, but it combines for 8 points among their rankings. How about this one here? Oh my. Rockwall and Lake Travis. 2 2-0s, both explosive. a great game in 6A. Stephenville's off to a nice start. Celina lost last week, 32-28 to Grandview. That's going to be an interesting game between two 4A schools, Stephenville, 4A Division I. Couple of other games. There's Happy and Spring Lake Earth. I love that, just the name of the school, Happy, in that game in Class 1A or 6-man. LBJ and La Vega. It was a couple of years ago, I believe, when LBJ kind of surprised some people. They're good. They're really, really good. And they beat La Vega, and it was kind of like, wait a minute. Austin LBJ and La Vega's a good one. Two East Texas teams, Paris and Pleasant Grove, come in at that 15 total points. Trinity and Colleyville Heritage. Trinity coming off the loss I mentioned earlier in the loss to Lake Travis. College Station, Magnolia. That's another good one. Here's always a good lower school. This is in Class 2A, Refugio and Edna. Couple of powerful teams in the Houston area. Galena Park, North Shore, and Westfield. Two heavyweights there. This is an interesting game. Go all the way down to the 14th game. It's Franklin, 2-0, and Cameron Yo, the Yeoman. We know what their history is. Last year struggled. Tommy Brashear out. Rick Rhodes is back. He was, of course, a part of a great run with Yo football back just not that long ago. Yo's 0-2. And they're better than that. They're going to be okay, but this is probably a tough matchup for them. Franklin right there, highly favored in that game. I know it says like they're favored by 2. That's going to be an incredibly, it says they're favored by 18. Franklin can hurt you. So be careful with that, led by, of course, Bryson Washington and what he does for them both ways. Go down a couple of more. Beckville and Mod in East Texas. Number 9, Beckville. Number 16, Mod. Here's a good one. Prosper, not bad. They've had their ties, but, of course, there's that gorilla in South Lake Carroll coming off the win against Rockwall Heath. And then Martin and Legacy, Midland Legacy. It took me a while. Midland Legacy is Midland Lee, Cedric Benson and all that great run. That's the game that's being played. I had to get used to Legacy because the Lee name was changed. Just like Craig Smoke's alma mater, daughter Jennifer's alma mater of Tyler Lee now is Tyler Legacy. We've seen some of those changes. Initially, I saw that as a new school. No, it's not. It's the same school, Midland Lee, but they're Midland Legacy. All right. Thank you very much to Armstrong Sims for being a part of the show. Always behind the scenes and doing what he does. Thanks to our incredible sponsor in Peter Chevrolet and Randy Peters. Back at it again next week. Appreciate the time from Brian Cope, the head coach at Lake Belton. Again, thanks to Luke Blackwell, the head coach at Mineola, and Nick Harrison, the head coach at West Ruskin. That great story about the jersey number 37 to honor the victims who died in the explosion when gas had no smell in New London, Texas, back in 1937. I'm David Smoke. Thank you. Enjoy week number 3 of the Texas high school football season. And this is Smoaky.com presenting the Texas High School Football Show. Have a great weekend.